I've always been a believer that spending time on little bikes, be it a dirt jumper or a BMX bike, is one of the fastest, easiest, and most affordable ways to increase your bike handling. But I often get asked which one of those, again, BMX bike or dirt jumper, is the better option. And the answer is, it depends. But hopefully, after this video, you'll have the tools to make the best decision for yourself. We'll start by covering the basic pros and cons between the two categories of bikes, and then take them out for some real-world testing at the dirt jumps, skate park, and pump track. First things first, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the biggest differences between the two bikes. The first thing you'll notice is definitely going to be wheel size. BMX bikes typically use 20-inch wheels, though some feature 22 or 24-inch wheels, whereas most DJs get 26s. This difference in wheel size and the corresponding geometry that goes with it is definitely going to be the biggest thing that you're going to notice when spending time on each bike. The 20-inch wheels on BMX bikes make for a compact, agile setup, ideal for tight pump tracks and skate parks. The shorter wheelbase and lower stack height put the rider in a more aggressive, forward-leaning position, great for manuals, spins, and quick transitions. But for taller riders, or those coming from other disciplines like mountain biking, that same compactness can make the bike feel twitchy and uncomfortable. Even bigger BMX bikes with a longer top tube are still going to feel a good bit smaller than a dirt jumper. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, it's part of what makes them so playful and fun, but it's something to keep in mind if you're above average height or prefer a roomier cockpit. Dirt jumpers, on the other hand, have geometry that leans a lot closer to a mountain bike or a hybrid bike. They get a taller front end, longer wheelbase, and a slacker head tube angle, creating a more stable, and for most folks, comfortable ride. Speaking of comfort, the larger 26-inch wheels, and in most cases, suspension fork, make for a much more forgiving setup. The trade-off though is maneuverability. Dirt jumpers aren't quite as agile on tighter setups, and they definitely can make some tricks or some tighter transition ramps and skate parks feel a bit awkward. Another important factor that may influence your decision is price. And when it comes to the cost of each of these bikes, BMX bikes win hands down. You can get a solid adult-sized BMX bike from a variety of brands for well under $500. Dirt jumpers, on the other hand, sit at a completely different price bracket. Entry-level models start at around $1,000, and high-end builds can climb well past $2,000. A lot of that pricing comes down to some of the higher-end components that a lot of dirt jumpers have, again, like that suspension fork or hydraulic disc brakes. But if I'm being honest, some of it probably comes from the difference in markup between the mountain bike and BMX industry, but that's a topic for another video. All that being said though, don't let the higher sticker price of a dirt jumper completely dissuade you, because I really do think they offer some serious benefits to some groups of riders. Before we get into talking about how dirt jumpers and BMX bikes compare in the real world, I want to do a quick plug to this video's sponsor, ARI, and more specifically, the ARI 801 that you've been seeing me ride. They're currently running a massive Black Friday sale with deals up to 40% off. That means you can get yourself this very 801 for just $1,049, making it one of the most affordable dirt jumpers on the market. The bike also qualifies for a variety of financing options and even the use of your pre-tax FSA and HSA funds. So if you're thinking a dirt jumper may be in your future, then you definitely don't want to miss this deal. And I've left a link where you can shop the entire ARI Black Friday sale in the description. Let's move on to the first location where I want to do some back-to-back testing, and that's at the dirt jumps. Here, the dirt jumper's bigger 26-inch wheels and suspension fork definitely give it the edge. If your local spot isn't regularly maintained, and let's be real, not many actually are, then the dirt jumper is going to let you get away with a lot more. The improved grip and better rollover clearance more or less mutes excessive trail noise that could make a particular line unrideable on a BMX bike. The biggest difference for me though definitely comes down to the added confidence I get from a dirt jumper. There's been multiple occasions when I've rolled up to a new spot with my BMX bike and been afraid to hit a particular line, but then came back with my dirt jumper and hit it no sweat. The bigger wheels, longer wheelbase, and suspension fork act as a bit of an insurance policy if you overshoot or case a jump. They almost make the terrain feel smaller, like everything's just been turned down a notch or so in difficulty. Another big confidence boost comes from the brakes. Most dirt jumpers feature hydraulic disc brakes, which is a big step up from the U-brakes found on BMX bikes. They give you more control when you need to slow down quickly or bail out of a line. Obviously, that's not to say that these brakes, or any for that matter, are needed to hit a big set of trails, but for us mere mortals, they're a nice touch. But BMX bikes still have their magic. The smaller wheels and tighter frames make them a lot more maneuverable in the air. Tricks like tabletops, spins, and tail whips are a good bit easier to learn and pull on smaller features. BMX bikes also tend to be a good bit burlier and more resistant. Their smaller wheels are less prone to denting or bending, and the simple steel frame and components can take a ton of abuse. If you end up bailing mid-set and ghost riding your bike off a lip, there's a good chance that the BMX bike will come out unscathed, but the dirt jumper might have some bigger consequences. Now, one other place where the BMX bike definitely comes in on top of a dirt jumper is on steeper lip trails. Think East Coast stuff like Caddy Woods. Those same smaller wheels and shorter wheelbase I've been talking about are more or less a must here. But let's be real, if you're riding terrain like that, you're probably not watching this video. But one place where you may notice that sensation is at the skate park. Like I mentioned earlier, the bigger wheels, slacker head tube angle, and longer wheelbase that make dirt jumpers so good on dirt can work against you here. Funny enough though, I notice this less in more plaza street style parks than I do in bowls. There, the aforementioned frame geometry makes it awkward to pump through tight corners, and trying to air out of a quarter pipe can feel downright scary. That's of course not to say that it can't be done, but doing this on a dirt jumper over a BMX bike, in my experience, requires a little more skill and a lot more commitment. BMX bikes, on the other hand, are built for this environment. Obviously, it should go without saying that, just as at the dirt jumps, these will be a lot easier to trick on. Another thing I haven't talked about yet is what's going on at the back of the bike. The shorter chainstays and high bottom bracket on a BMX bike make it significantly easier to get the front end up, which means manuals and bunny hops require a lot less effort. Now, on the flip side, that combined with the steep head tube angle can make these bikes feel kind of twitchy. But once you get used to it, it's a ton of fun. Speaking of fun, another thing that you can do on a BMX that you can't on most dirt jumpers is run pegs. This opens up a ton more options when at the park and can breathe a lot of life into an otherwise boring skate park. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't have fun or ride a dirt jumper well at the park. But in my experience, whenever I've shown up to a skate park with my DJ, I kind of feel like I brought the wrong tool for the job. And last but not least, that brings us to the pump track. And while personally, I feel like there's a pretty clear winner at both the dirt jumps and skate park, here the differences are a lot less black and white. Both bikes actually work really well, and that's even reflected at the highest level of pump track racing, where you'll see some elite riders choosing to run a 20-inch bike and others on dirt jumpers, all competing against each other in the very same event. So clearly, it's going to come down to your personal preference. But let's get into what some of the differences are. On a dirt jumper, you get that same sense of forgiveness and accompanying confidence that I've been raving about this whole video. I feel more comfortable pulling up for a double or manualing through rollers on a DJ, knowing that the bigger wheels and suspension fork will protect me if I case. The stronger brakes are a nice touch too, especially if you suck as much at cornering as I do. Now, the BMX, on the other hand, feels faster and more energetic. There's a snappiness to it that feels like every pump through a roller or out of a berm translates directly into speed. This added efficiency usually means I get tired less quickly on a BMX bike than I do the dirt jumper as well. So, in general, I'd say that both bikes handle most pump tracks pretty dang well, but there are some exceptions. I found that on particularly tight Velo Solution style paved tracks, the longer wheelbase of a dirt jumper can feel like too much bike for the space, sapping your speed through smaller rollers and tighter berms. And of course, if your local pump track is dirt and doesn't see a lot of maintenance, then the BMX bike will suffer from that same sensitivity to surface imperfections that I talked about at the dirt jumps. Now, obviously, I've pretty much exclusively been talking about freestyle BMX bikes in this video. And to be honest, if you're looking for a general purpose BMX bike, that's what I'd recommend. But since you're at the pump track, I do think it makes sense here to touch on racing, if not just for a minute or so. To be honest, my experience here is pretty limited. But from the handful of races I've done as an adult, I think it's safe to say that both a 20-inch race bike and a lighter dirt jumper can do equally well. That said, it seems like most novice to intermediate adults are riding in the cruiser class, either on a 24-inch BMX bike or a full-on dirt jumper. So, if you're wanting a full gate to race against, it might not be a bad idea to see what other riders your age and skill level are using at your local track and weigh that into your decision-making process. Let's wrap things up by reviewing what we talked about and choosing a winner for each of those 5 categories. For fit and ride feel, the dirt jumper is going to take it. It's more comfortable for most adult riders, and its handling and ride feel will be more akin to what most of us are probably used to. For our second category, price, the BMX takes the win easily. Again, you can get a good BMX bike for less than half the cost of a lot of dirt jumpers. Moving on then to terrain. And the first place we tested these guys out was at the dirt jumps. Here, the dirt jumper's stability and forgiveness gave it the edge. But things swing back in favor to the popular, more maneuverable BMX bike at the skate park. And finally, at the pump track, well, that one's a draw. Both bikes are great here, just in their own separate way. So yeah, we ended up with a tie, 3-3. To be honest, that just solidifies my personal belief that I think both of these bikes are really awesome. It just comes down to what your personal preferences and needs are. Hopefully, this video will help you make that decision for yourself. Personally, I grew up riding BMX bikes and continued to ride one all through my 20s. But as I got more into mountain biking, I gradually switched over to dirt jumpers, mostly so that the transition between bikes wouldn't feel as drastic. Lately though, I've been spending more and more time on my BMX. I'd be lying if I didn't say that at least some of this is a nostalgic kick, but I've also been enjoying the extra playfulness and the challenge of relearning some of the tricks that I haven't messed with in years. If you have any more questions about BMX bikes or dirt jumpers, then please leave those in the comments and I promise I'll get you an answer. While you're there, if you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button, which will just help other people find the video. Thanks as always for tuning in, and remember that bikes are for everyone. Have fun out there.